It's rather pleasant when a gunmaker manages to find its footing again. Charter Arms is doing just that, seemingly poised to reclaim a slice of the revolver market with its rather interesting array of options. Now, as a proponent of the brand, I maintain that my preferred Charter Arms revolver, and its most quintessential offering, remains the Bulldog. Since its introduction in 1973, the Bulldog has been a consistent presence in the Charter Arms catalog, arguably becoming synonymous with the company. The term Bulldog itself predates Charter Arms. It was applied to various short-barreled, large-caliber revolvers from the late 19th century and onward. The various English Bulldogs and Webley Bulldogs is perhaps the most recognized, though many manufacturers use the moniker inside and outside of Europe. The Charter Arms Bulldog, first produced in '73, quickly gained traction as a defensive firearm. The 1970s, as some may recall, favored large calibers. The Bulldog accommodated this with the .44 Special round, a round known for its substantial diameter and moderate speed. Sales were considerable, and by the mid-1980s, over 500,000 units had been sold. It even achieved a degree of notoriety through an accidental association with the Son of Sam case, proving that even a tool can find itself in an unfortunate company. Its design is notable for its simplicity, affordability, and effectiveness, particularly in an area that prioritized significant bore diameter. Douglas McClanahan isn't a name that will immediately ring a bell for every firearms enthusiast, but he was the creator of Charter Arms and the Bulldog. He cut his teeth at manufacturers like Colt, High Standard, Ruger, and a few more. He ventured into his own in 1964, founding Charter Arms in Bridgeport, Connecticut. His ambition was pretty easy. I'm going to produce handguns that are both innovative, reliable, and affordable. The company's first offering was the Undercover, which was a very traditional 5-shot revolver chambered in .38 Special. It's not flashy, but it kind of set the standard for how McClanahan would approach revolver design. He got rid of the traditional side plate construction and used a single-piece frame. This wasn't a stylistic choice. It made the revolver stronger, allowing it to handle higher pressure loads, which was kind of a distinct advantage for a short-barreled self-defense firearm. McClanahan also significantly reduced the number of moving parts within a gun, which made it cheaper to produce, simplified the mechanics, and enhanced its reliability. Furthermore, he actually developed the transfer bar safety device that we know and love on revolvers these days. So his work with the Undercover kind of laid the foundation for the Bulldog. So the original Charter Arms Bulldog held 5 rounds of .44 Special and fired them from a 3-inch barrel. While the Bulldog name has since been used for the .357 Magnum version of the gun and various other calibers and various other barrel lengths like 2.2, 2.5, and 4.2 inches, for those of us with a more traditional appreciation, the genuine article will remain the .44 Special with a 3-inch barrel and with no ejection rod shroud. That's the classic Bulldog that we all know and love. There's nothing extremely new about the Bulldog. It's a double-action revolver with an exposed hammer. It weighs almost 22 ounces, which is kind of light for a .44 Special, and with a 3-inch barrel. My personal example has kind of these large aftermarket grips, which while comfortable, don't really help with discreet carry. I do intend to fix that and maybe get some original Charter Arms grips on this gun. This is not a small gun designed for pocket carry. It's sized more like a Glock 19, which is compact enough for concealment, yet substantial in the hand. Its basic design was for self-defense, a role in which I chose to test its performance. In 2025, the .44 Special exists in a quiet state of obsolescence. It doesn't really offer any real advantages over more common revolver cartridges like .357, .38 Special, or my favorite, .32 H&R Magnum, and unfortunately it has a rather long list of drawbacks. The first being the fact that a large bullet needs a large gun. The Bulldog and .44 Special will always be a hefty firearm due to the required bore and cylinder size. The large bullets also limit your capacity to 5 rounds in a frame that could easily hold 6 or even 7 rounds of .38 or .357 Magnum in a smaller, lighter package. The .44 Special kind of had this perceived value in the 1970s because it was a big bullet and defensive ammo at the time wasn't great. Your normal .38 Special was fine, but a .44 Special was bigger. It penetrated deeper and was more likely to stop a threat. It gave a good large bore bullet performance without the recoil of a .357 Magnum, but in this day and age, that kind of advantage has kind of just vanished. Modern ammo has made smaller calibers much more capable at stopping a threat. The use of a .44 Special revolver gives you no distinct benefits for modern self-defense use, nor does it excel in applications like hunting or bear defense, where a 44 Magnum would be a much more sensible choice. It's no cheaper than the 44 Magnum. In fact, it's more expensive at times, and it's harder to find. In essence, it's basically a 45 ACP, but you're limited to 5 shots in a revolver rather than 7, 8, or even 9 in a semi-automatic. Now, despite its lack of modern tactical superiority, the cartridge is enjoyable to shoot and has a certain cool factor. A 220 grain 44 caliber projectile certainly looks impressive and shoots rather nicely. The 44 Special is one of those cartridges that's known for being quite accurate. Now, why it's more accurate than other cartridges is unknown to me, but that does seem to be its reputation. And while I don't believe in stopping power when I load a 220 grain 44 caliber projectile into a revolver cylinder, I almost believe. Now let's talk about Charter Arms as a company. It's one that's had more than a few lives, popping up and fading away and then reappearing again. Some incarnations were good, others, well, not so much. While my personal experience is largely limited to my old Bulldog, I've leaned on the wisdom of those venerable and occasionally groan-inducing ancient forums like the High Road and the Firing Line for some more historical context. Believe it or not, they can be gold mines of information. Generally speaking, guns made before 1988 fall under the original Charter Arms brand. These are often considered the classics. Later, we saw guns produced by a company called Charco, which was kind of the remnants of Charter Arms, and then later on, even further, Charco 2000. From what I gather, the Charco guns represented a step down in quality from the originals, and the Charco 2000 era was, by most accounts, even worse. Definitely something to avoid if you're looking for a reliable revolver. If you find a gun marked Stratford or Bridgeford, you're likely at one of those earlier, more desirable models. Although some Charco guns even ended up with new old stock Stratford barrels, so it's kind of a quirky footnote in their manufacturing history. In the modern era, Charter Arms has experienced a genuine resurgence. This is largely thanks to some pretty creative revolver designs and good quality assurance. I'm personally waiting on a Double Dog to review, but their ventures into revolvers that can use automatic pistol cartridges have been quite successful. I've heard from sources I trust that guns like the Double Dog and the Coyote are solid performers. I also have a particular, slightly irrational desire for the Boomer, which is their sightless, ultra-short-barreled 44 Special with porting. It's just dumb enough to be absolutely entertaining. The modern Charter Arms guns seem pretty good. I don't want to give them a ringing endorsement until I have the Double Dog in my hand and I get to torture it a bit. So until then, just, be cautious and use sources you trust. The Charter Arms Bulldog is not, by any stretch, an unpleasant gun to shoot. I've fired various cartridges through mine, from 200 grain FMJs to 180 grain JHPs, all the way up to those classic 220 grain lead round points. At no point did the recoil feel overly punishing. He seems to have rather good manners for a Bulldog. The 44 Special falls into a category of large bore rounds where the recoil is less of a sharp snap and more of a deliberate push. Concussion from the 3-inch barrel is also quite mild. From a defensive standpoint, this characteristic can be quite helpful for faster follow-up shots. To test its practical use, I did a simple drill. From a low ready position, I aimed and fired 5 rounds into an A zone at 7 yards as quickly as possible. This is basically a bill drill, but with fewer rounds in a different starting position. My average time to land all 5 shots was about 3 seconds. For someone with my, shall we say, modest proficiency with revolvers, this is, quote, not terrible. While the 44 Special may not be the most optimal modern cartridge, 5 rounds of it are generally considered sufficient to address a determined threat. Another noteworthy trait of the 44 Special is its accuracy. It's a cartridge that performs well in this regard. At 25 yards, I can consistently hit an IPSC target using double action only shots, relying on the Bulldog's rather basic front sight. At 50 yards, cocking the hammer for single action helped me hit more often than I missed, but I didn't hit all the time. And let me tell you this, when the 44 Special hits steel, the sound and the impact are, shall we say, decisive. The Charter Arms Bulldog does have a decent trigger. The double action pull is reasonably light and smooth, and the single action option is commendably crisp. The front side is a rather prominent stainless ramp. It does lack contrast, but its sheer size makes it easy to pick up quickly. It is clearly a sight designed for speed over intricate precision. Like most revolvers, the rear sight is nothing more than a trench cut into the top strap. And like most revolvers, I think it takes away from the accuracy possible with the gun. Real rear sights on a revolver are like a cheat code. It just makes the gun much, much easier to shoot, and it's a big reason why I like the Ultimate Carry series so much. I have a somewhat heretical desire for a red dot ready version of the Bulldog. Such an addition would undoubtedly maximize the inherent accuracy of the 44 Special. It'd make shooting faster. It would make shooting further easier. And ultimately it would be useful in pretty much any lighting condition. So yeah, let's get a Bulldog with a red dot on top. Ultimately, the Charter Arms Bulldogs are very cool guns. In an era dominated by highly efficient compact designs like the SIG P365, the Bulldog offers rather limited practical advantages. However, it possesses an undeniable cool factor, and sometimes cool is a perfectly valid reason for ownership or to even carry the Bulldog. The Bulldog might not be the most optimal choice, but it remains an effective and viable option. One might even say it just is, and sometimes that's truly enough.